Good morning. Well, let's start, as they always say, from the beginning. How did your union, your convergence between a tech project and a bank, private banking and/or bank credit come about? How did this union come about to create this valuable project?
Well, first of all, many thanks to Merch for organizing this event and for inviting us. Ours began a few years ago because we knew each other from previous situations, and basically we were clear that we wanted to enter the crypto world with a specialist, and in this case, Onyze appeared, and in this case, Angel and his team, and we started working.
It's practically a summary of 3-4 years of work in a minute. To continue, first of all, thank you for inviting me. Thank you for allowing us to be here to share a bit of what we've done, and it's just a bit of what we discussed. We met a while ago. We had, from the Onyze case, we've been talking to banks and players for a long time. And when we started talking, we found a bank that really wanted to bet on this, wanted to take it seriously. And from there, we did everything possible to make the project a success from minute zero.
You wanted to integrate crypto firsthand. You were seeing that people were demanding it. How was that integration?
What are the reasons that led us to get into this? First, because we had management that was interested in exploring this field. We believe it's something we need to work on and enter into. It's here to stay, and therefore our role is important. And secondly, our clients were starting to demand, in some way, to have services of this type. And what was the undeniable trigger is the fact of regulation. We have operations in Andorra, and in Andorra we had the approval of the digital assets law a little before MiCA, and that was the trigger that made us enter, because we finally had the regulatory framework that the law gave us to operate with guarantees, which is ultimately what is required of banks.
In terms of challenges, I understand that taxation, technology is an important challenge. It's better to ally, start from scratch. In this case, we see that this success story has also been achieved thanks to Onyze.
Yes, look, this is a multidisciplinary project. Whoever thinks this is a technology project or a digital assets area project, I think they're wrong. It impacts all areas of the bank, in operations, in technology.
More than you think.
In risks.
In fact, it's just what he says. When we started talking to many banks, everyone starts with, well, the technology, this is the commodity of all this almost. Because once it's set up, it can be done with anyone, everyone, immediately, well, compliance. And then I always say the same thing. When you get to operations, you'll see all the problems. You have to go through all the barriers and break them all within the houses because it has to adapt in everything. In everything, it's 100% transversal.
Totally.
What does it mean in this case to be pioneers? Because you're doing something that very few dare to do. In the times we're in, there are some who are flirting with cryptos, but you already have your product launched.
Being a pioneer has its pros and cons. Clearly, it has helped us in terms of image, in the sense that we continue in our leadership position that we have in Andorra, but it has its cons, and the cons also weigh, because in the end, it's a project that is not easy. It's a project that wears you out. There comes a time when you even want to throw in the towel. But well, in the end, here we are. We've continued. And after all, I think what we've brought to the market has a very interesting differential point.
I'll continue with you, Albert, because regarding the clients who are, in this case, the balance that ultimately moves all the money, what is the perspective they had? Were they surprised? Were they really demanding it from you?
Yes, yes. In fact, we've been active for very few months. We've been active for 2.5 months. We've seen that the reception is very positive. We've made an effort to ensure that all this is integrated into online banking in a way, we could say, with a user experience already known. And that has been very well received. The fact that you can integrate your positions from both traditional finance and the crypto part into a single balance, that's very interesting for our client profile. And we've also identified that our private banking clients were somewhat desiring a tool of this type so as not to go to certain jurisdictions to operate in certain amounts, in certain ways that perhaps are not so aligned with traditional banking.
To add a bit to what he says, one of the hypotheses that was here was when you propose this as a bank, what you propose is there are people who really have digital assets and who prefer to have them stored in a bank rather than having them in a MetaMask or a Ledger or similar. Even other platforms, Creand, Binance, even Onyze itself, we haven't taken 3 months to validate that hypothesis. There are people who have quite a few assets and who are interested in depositing them in a bank rather than leaving them on other types of platforms, which shows that there is interest and that there is not only interest because there is a user who wants to buy, but there are people who already demand to be able to take their assets to a bank, have them safely stored and housed.
Seen from both perspectives, from technology, what are the benefits that it brings for end customers to reach a traditional bank, credit banking, also private banking, and offer them crypto?
Well, more than from technology per se, which there are many. If we were purely talking about technology, I was recently talking with a use case of a custodian, I won't say who, but their custody model had many gaps. Their team, Onyze, is a company of 15 people. Half of the people are compliance, half of the people are technology. We have a very cybersecurity focused and paranoid approach to all this to be at ease. But there are other types of projects that don't have these attitudes. We've seen it in the recent hacks that have occurred, even larger projects like the hack BitGet had with Safe, with all the funds it lost. In the end, a bank, all those layers are natural for security. They are natural for the bank. You don't have to explain what a double check is, what DORA is, what operational resilience is. All of this is already integrated. So when you talk about technology, yes, I can set it up on my own, but I'm going to make mistakes that a bank has been naturally resolving for years. And
directly facing the public, what are those tangible advantages that the user perceives?
I think the biggest effort is the fact of having integrated it into online banking so that in 3 clicks you can literally buy or sell or transfer your crypto asset positions 24/7. Well, that's really the key to success. We have managed to make this an option within our online banking. There's only a small onboarding because the law requires us to have a suitability test. But once this process is completed, it is automatically integrated into your application in a way that our client already knows and feels comfortable with because it's what they've been using for a long time.
We've talked about advantages. What are those differences that you have by integrating everything compared to other companies or competitors, so to speak, that have those small spin-offs of approaching crypto, but in a punctual way?
And I would highlight the fact of having integrated it into online banking, because in the end, this allows the client to be autonomous. And then there will be a couple of features that I think are pioneering in the sense that they are not implemented in other banking solutions. We see, for example, in Spain, and they are basically outgoing and incoming transfers. Our service allows you to transfer from your external wallets to the wallets that the bank holds, logically going through all the prevention and laundering controls. But we have managed to deploy this service, which is being very, very well received because people are repatriating. They are bringing their assets back under what would be
the bank's custody?
Yeah, I did want to make a change. Totally agree. I think there are other players that create. It's not the first bank to offer digital assets, that's clear, but it is the first bank to offer it from a 360 perspective. Any user can deposit a Bitcoin today and withdraw it tomorrow, or deposit it on Saturday and sell it on Friday, sell it or buy it on Sunday. and withdraw at the same Sunday. Few banks allow this, and with all the flexibility, because then all the typical buts come when you start working with one of these banks, that perspective they have is a bit more risk averse, or risk appetite is much lower. How has this been resolved? One of the points mentioned is all that part of monitoring, transaction monitoring, FinCrime, all this part of internal regulatory compliance, the whole system of alerts and patterns that the solution integrates gives that, in quotes, peace of mind to be able to do what is being done. In the end, everything is monitored, everything is transacted, everything is controlled, and almost practically the same as it was done, as any other part works, or as a team, compliance, any other part of the bank. And this allows you to provide a 24/7 operation surely for the client.
For us, it has been integrating the crypto operation into what is the current operational model, the current operations model of the bank. We treat this type of asset exactly the same as other types of assets, whether they are funds, stocks. That has been the effort. It is true that this effort has allowed us to then naturally have a lot of operations that are already implemented by default. All the reporting, regulators, all the tax issues we talked about in the previous panel, the banking core automatically does it because it already does it for the rest of the assets, and therefore it makes all the sense in the world to do it for this type.
In this case, Angel, I want to ask you, because after all, Grant is a client, but how is that translation of language when you enter an institution and you have to explain to them, hey, I want crypto in my bank? Okay, yes, but it's the language already accompanied by our day-to-day. How do you do it? How do you do it?
Well, that's a very good question. Let's see, in the case of Cream, it was very simple, and the conversation has always been very natural. Throughout the partnership, we've been working on this. Point number one, it's not always like this with banks. In fact, it's not usual with banks, and this is to be appreciated. And the normal thing here, what I usually say is that my job is to go with the hammer breaking walls, because you start talking to the product person, explaining it in the language, or the business person explaining it in the language that the business person can understand how it increases their wealth, can understand use cases, can understand how to generate these benefits for the bank. Once you have the okay, you have to go, you break that first wall, you go to the second wall, you have to go to the legal team, explain to the legal team where the reassurances are, those risks to the compliance team, because there's no problem. When you break all this, you have to get to the operations person and explain how this works, and you have to speak to each one in their language. We avoid a lot. You do a lot of educational work, that's clear, but we avoid a lot of crypto language, and we try to go much more to banking language so that it is understood. In fact, I've said this.
Many times create analogies, see how the bank already solved those challenges in the traditional way. And what does the layer of adding?
The crypto product in this case, although we can't talk about figures, but what signals are you seeing in the market, in the users, that truly confirm that idea you had of incorporating cryptocurrencies?
In fact, we can't talk because we are just in the first months and we don't have yet. But the truth is that the acceptance has been very, very positive in the retail part, but especially in the private banking part, where we have started to see that indeed those capitals that had left are starting to return, because in the end they had left because we really couldn't provide the service. But now that we do, the client prefers to have it integrated in the same position and with an entity they've been working with for many years.
And looking to the future, we talk about terminology. We've been discussing how it's complicated to bring crypto language to banking. What do you think? What approach will you take regarding offering yields, farming, staking? How is all this translated for the public? Do you have it on a visible roadmap?
Yes, I think it makes perfect sense that once we've developed the custody service, we somehow add a layer of value, added value, and words like the ones you've used, gift, staking, and other things. I think it makes sense to consider them in the coming months. Yet in the end, they are just words, but we're already using them in traditional finance, whether it's deposits or portfolio management. In the end, the first step was to launch custody and now to build a service layer that adds value to this custody. And these buzzwords will be there.
Albert, you are the voice of the bank right now, very advanced in crypto in this case. Speaking of stablecoins, CBC, what is the vision you have from there, from Andorra?
Here, our position for now is wait and see. We are seeing a lot of movement. On Wednesday, BBVA announced the launch of its Nova stablecoin for next year. I think it's the word that's been used the most in these 3 days, at merge. I have a bit of a gazpacho feeling, and we have to see how this ends up evolving. For now, we are going to stay in a position of seeing how it develops, seeing what the real impact of MiCA is, what Tether's movement is, what the European Central Bank does. I think in the coming months, we are going to see there will be changes, and from there we will decide.
Add to this that we are in Madrid. In Europe, we talk a lot about MiCA, but this is launched in Andorra with Andorran regulation and in an ecosystem that is Andorra, where the euro, although it seems the same, is not exactly the same. So maybe here we are not talking about the umpteenth bank launching the umpteenth stablecoin, but maybe much more strategic movements that would make sense at a country level. But well, this is to be seen, and we will be there. Because apart from, yes, it is important, apart from providing that support to Creand, one of the tasks we did was jointly to create, or for Creand to have all its licenses, but Onyze also to have a presence in the country and have licenses in the country. We are the only external custodian that today has a license in Andorra. And we did this precisely to take advantage of the momentum the country had, that capacity, that lead over MiCA, which already had a license much earlier, etc. I think it should be seen with the nuance of Andorra to understand that it's not the same as a BBVA wanting to launch a stablecoin here, but there could be other types of situations and cases.
Well, we've talked about these real use cases that we are creating here, success stories. Let's hope it's not the first or the last. I think many more will come. Future vision, I think we are realizing that too.
I got another room of work. I can say that new things will come.
Great. Well, a big round of applause for these two people. Let's see. Ansel, a pleasure to talk with you. And let's move on to the next panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys.